Kumla Vlad Gemara. Today is Yudal Kislev. The Rebbe said that he got married to the previous Lubavitch Rebbe's daughter, and this is his connection to all Chassidim around the world. So we are up to Daf Pei Aleph. Just quickly remind you what we did so far. We had where it says that Rabbi Eliezer said, if you had a jug of mei chatas, the water you're going to use to purify somebody, and a little bit of not mayim chaim, the spring water, but tap water, let's say, joint parcel of water. He says you do it twice. You sprinkle it twice. And we tried to understand what's the point of sprinkling it twice. So we had three different versions, but we're focusing now on Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi comes along and he said that his version is, you must say that Rabbi Eliezer holds ein bila, which means it doesn't mix well. Doesn't mix well. And since you only put it, he takes it literally where it says a mashu, a kosher, only a drop of water went in. So if you sprayed the first time, it's possible that the water that was there was not the pustular water. But if you spray it a second time, since there's only a mashu of water, you definitely used up the mashu of water, even if it was not the first time. So the second time you got it right. So then we asked a series of questions. Basically, is if you say Rabbi Eliezer holds that there's no bila, there's no proper mixing, so how come you have a carbon oil and a chatas mixed up together? He says you spray the top first, and then you spray on the bottom. How can you spray on the top? If you hold ein bila, maybe the water, the what you sprayed on top was actually the oil blood, which belongs on the bottom. So therefore, we had to answer each time. It's talking about a unique case, and that is that there was more blood in the chatas from the chatas than what there was from the oila. And how much you just sprinkle on the top of the mizbeach, more than the amount that there was in the oila. So definitely there was a little bit of chatas blood mixed in. And then it says the sahakam on the bottom. It says oilin lezeh that when you spray the bottom, it's good enough. L'chayda, how can it be good enough? Maybe the blood that you're doing on the bottom is all the chatas blood, and not the oila blood. Maybe a drop of the chatzah went on top, all the oil of blood went on top, and now what you're doing is the chatzah blood. So therefore he had to say, no. Again, we had to twist the brises around and say, it didn't mean that you yaitze both. It meant that oil and zelazed as if you did the balance for the chatas. Because the chatas is on top of the line you have to spray, and then you also have to do the shirayim. So therefore, because there's more chatzah blood than oil blood, definitely you did the top and you did the bottom, as far as the chatzah is concerned, not the oil. And we had to basically change every brise around. Then we were stuck with our mission over here that it says that if you mixed up matanas arba, you had a carbon shlamim, the guy mixed up with a carbon b'chayr, right? And they're all mixed up together, and you have and if they're all mixed up together, and according to and Rabbi Yeshua said to Rabbi Eliezer says that you what do you call that? You sprinkled four places. And Rabbi Yeshua said, hey, how can you do that? Baltaisif. But according to you, if you're going to learn that there was ein bila, and you had what? You had four scoops of what do you call it? Of 4 amounts for the shlamim, and you had 1 amount for the b'chayr. Then if it's ein bila, then where's the baltaisif here? There's a possibility that you threw the entire b'chayr in one corner. There's a possibility you didn't. So Taisa says, so it's a suffix baltaisif. Suffix baltaisif already is not the same thing as the way he came out charging. Oh, you're even baltaisif. So Taisa already said before yesterday, it's a suffix baltaisif. And therefore, what's the big deal? So now comes the Rav. Now, this is very difficult to learn the names. Because no way in the world that the Rav is answering a question on Rav Ashi. It's impossible. But yet the way the Gemara reads, you'll see, it sounds like, that the Rav is for answering Rav Ashi.
Didn't we have a couple of Rav Ashis?
Yeah, okay, yeah. So it must be, but this one here is definitely the regular Rav Ashi, because we have,
the last.
yeah, as always, you have the 3, and the Rav Ashi comes up later with an answer. So it must be the Gemara is saying, it must be this answer Rav Ashi was said before by other Amoraim. This discussion already happened before. It's just that Rav Ashi is the name that we know, so we use it as Rav Ashi. But there's no way in the world that the Rav, in fact, some people go as Rabbah, go back another generation. Impossible.
Well,
Rabbah was Rabbah's teacher, and Rabbah, the day that Rabbah passed away, Rav Ashi was born. So there's no way that Rabbah and Rav Ashi can have a conversation. That's how Rashi learned. The Rambam doesn't learn that way, but nevertheless, that's how Rashi learns. Anyway, Elo Amar Rabbah. So Rabbah says, you got it all wrong. Rav Ashi learns ain't bila, and he learns this prat by chatos over there. That the reason we have to spray twice is because it's quite possible that the first one was the pustular water, and the second one you got the kosher water. I always the mission of Bryce, everything else. I'll tell you, the bolulei pligi. Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim not arguing in a case where it mixed up. If you all got mixed up, if even according to Rabbi Eliezer, no good. Because it's all mixed up and ain't bila. How do you know what went where? You know what the machlekes is? The machlekes Chachamim big cases. You have one cup completely with one blood and another cup completely with the other blood. And there we come into the whole thing that we said to Royin. You remember, Rabbi Lezer says, no problem, go ahead and do both. If you know why? Because we'll imagine that if it's the wrong one, it's only water. And you use both. In other words, you're going to spray both cups on top, you're going to spray both cups on the bottom. Go back to all these prices, no problem. You're going to spray both of them on top and both of them on the bottom, and therefore you're yotze the chattas and you're yotze the oil on the bottom as well. Yotze everything. Excuse me. You might be spraying oil on top of the line. He says, Ryan, you imagine it's water. And the Chachamim will argue, they don't believe in this Ryan business, and therefore they say you can't do it. They say you should throw it out all Ba'ama, throw it out in the canal. So he pleaded because Rabbi Lezer, he said Rabbi Lezer believes in the top in subject of Ryan, and now all the prices make sense, and our Mishnah everything makes sense now. Says the Gemara, you're telling me with bolo, like, please, you tell me that what Rabbi Lezer is arguing the case of bolo, where it's actually stirred together, mixed together. But Tanya will let in the Bryson, where we had it before, Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees with our Mishnah. He says, no. We had in the Mishnah here that in our Mishnah we said that if the Evorim, the way our Tana learned, that Rabbi Lezer holds, if the limbs of a korban oila got mixed up with the limbs of a korban, let's say chattas, and the problem is if you put them all in the mezbeach, a chattas has to be eaten and everything else. So what do you do? So excuse me. So it says and then we had three cases. Got mixed up the limbs of a kosher animal with a kosher animal. Got mixed up the kosher animal, let's say, with the chulin, or got mixed up with a reiva and nirba, or with a vodim of a balmum. So our Mishnah learns that he argues with everything. So in certain cases we say, look, you have to wait to wander about and to get a mum. Sorry, not by limbs, you don't ever say that. By limbs, Rabbi Lezer always says that you imagine it's firewood. You imagine that he says Royan. So you imagine that that even by a Balmum, we'll say Royan, imagine it's firewood. And you can bring it all up. Chacham don't believe in Royan, therefore they always say you can't. So Otanya, but you disagrees. He says, the blood of a chatak and mixed with the blood of an oila. Because you say that there's a whole thing, there's a machlekes, whether you say Royan, you imagine that what? That the blood of the oil is water, and therefore if you're spraying it above the line, it's not a problem. I hold that everyone agrees that you say Royan. The Chum agree, spray the blood. Not like I'm Mishnah. You do it. Because everyone agrees in the principle of Royan. Berayva v'nirba, where you have the trader says min habokim min hatzayin, you're not allowed to bring up the blood you're not bring up a carbon from a rayva or a nirba with bestiality. So everyone agrees lo yikriv. There's no one who argues on that. Aman nechaku, what are they arguing? Not like you said that they're arguing in kosher and two different kabbanas. No, because you made a whole machlekes out of Royan. I don't agree with you. I think everyone agrees with Royan. So when do they argue? Al dam tmima shenis added bedam balas mum. But Tmima joined a Balas Mum. And that's the Machleb. Lezer says, Yikriv, you bring it up. Rabbi says, you bring it up. Why does he bring it up? Because he says that the Isser, well, the Gemara had two solutions. One was that the Balmum we're talking about is like a weak Balmum, like a cataract in the eye, or split lip, whatever, the weak Balmum. Or the Gemara concludes, Rabbi Lezer holds, when do we say Balmum is an issue? Now I'll bring it up if it's on its own. But if it's in a mixture, you learn from a pasuk, then you're allowed to bring it up. And then, but the main point we're trying to bring out here is, and this Brisa says, and they're arguing bain b'bowl, bain b'kaisis, whether it's mixed up together in one cup or whether it's two different cups got mixed up. That comes a yikriv. Now l'chayda, where Rabbi Yehuda argues with our Mishnah is whether we believe whether they're arguing in the principle of royin or not. But this Brisa says clearly they're arguing whether it's bowl mixed together or whether it's in different cups. And our Mishnah does not argue with that point. Our Mishnah is only arguing on the point with him whether they're arguing a rain or not, but not in the circumstances of the case. So our Mishnah also talking about bowl, and yet there's a machlekes. So back to Kasha Rabasha, you say that Rabbi holds ein bila. How do you explain all of these cases that we learned?
In the case of a mum oiver,
wherever we have to wait till the mum is over.
I'm saying, would the blood of a mum of a behemoth with a mum oiver be considered davar sheyesh matil?
Interesting question.
I'm just thinking because if it got mixed in,
but
bittul.
Yeah, but nobody's saying bittul. No one's saying bittul. We have a rule, ein oil mavatlan zeh. We don't say bittul. But we're saying is we imagine that it's water, let's say, No, but the point we said was that there's no Iser.
Does it pass on the good blood?
No, but Rabbi Lezer holds there's no Iser Bechlal, even a real Balmum, a pure Balmum, if it's mixed in with another thing. There's no Iser. No problem.
That's the
Yeah, and the Chachamim say that it's definitely Aser. So don't you think it makes it worse, not better?
That's what I'm saying.
So and they hold Aser even of a permanent mum. So it would be Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda, liber Rabbi Lezer Masi Bei Molokas. Yes, no. Rabbi Yehuda is the one who says there's no difference whether it's mixed together or kaisis. But we're following our Mishnah. And our Rabban, we said Rabban means our Mishnah. Rabban and big kaisis, they're only arguing about kaisis. They're not arguing bowl. And why aren't they arguing bowl? Look at Rashi told us that Rabbi Lezer holds ain't bila. So if it will be bowl, how do you know what you're getting? There's no way Rabbi Lezer would say, okay, let's put it on top. Because how do you know? Since there's no mixture, it could be again the wrong one. It doesn't help thinking. When does it help thinking that it's like water? You get definitely, if you hold yesh bila, you definitely have blood of a chatas there and blood of an oila, but they're all mixed up. So he said, don't worry, the chatas blood will be good, and the oila blood that's mixed in will treat it like water. But if you hold ain bila, so what did you do? Could be all you had was oila blood on top. So what did you do? Nothing. Now, interesting thing. When we say that the leftover blood of a karma chatas has to go down, down the chutes over there on the side, do you have to actually put it directly into the side, or could it just run down? You put it on the wall of the mizbeach and it just keeps on running down on its own. So Abai comes along and says, "Lo yishanu." Interesting. Usually you have a Rabbi saying a din, and Abai coming asking a question. It's the other way around. Lo yishanu elat chilas chatas v'oila. If you have the beginning of a chatas, you have to spray, which is you spray above the line, and then you have an oil spray above the line. So you got to reach. What do we do here? That's the whole discussion. Avol soiv chatas. But if it's, let's say, the end of the chat, now this is the shirayim. Where does the shirayim of a chat? No, the chat got to spray above the line. But where does the shirayim go? Below the line. And an oil, where do you spray? Below the line. Then there's no problem. Then, well, definitely you yaitza chatas oil. When it says oil and zelazeh, before you say that means whatever it's only for the chatas. No, oil and zelazeh goes for the oil and for the chatas. Avo soiv chatas. If this is the leftovers of the karma chatas that has to drain down in the bottom, the oil. Even hakel mokum oil mokum shraim. Everyone agrees, and you yaitza both. You completed your chatas and the oil. Rabbi Yosef said to him, my teacher Rabbi Yehuda said that shirayim tzrichin it's the beher. Rabbi Yehuda says no. You're not jaytza the shirayim of the chatas because you need it to be on the platform itself, on the yesod itself, on that mold, not on the wall of the mizbeach. So therefore, if you spray on the wall of the mizbeach, you'll be only yaytza oila and not the chatas shirayim. So now the Gemara said this machlekes. Abai and Rabbi Yosef, we also have others. The Chain Amar Reish Lakish Lo Yishanu. This is all talking about chilas chatas v'oilas like Abai. Avos said chatas leftovers v'oilas. You have makam oilam makam shirayim. That's the same place. Amar Rabbi Yechon argues Reish Lakish. We take Rabbi Lazar or Rabbi Lazar argues Adayin machlekes. Nope, it's the same thing. Same machlekes Chachamim because the shirayim of the chatas can be on the wall as well. Sorry. That Rabbi Yechon hold that the shiraim, the chatzah is still a problem because the chatzah has to go directly to the yesod. So you can have the same argument about whether royin or not. Okay, Moshe Rabbi Huna Bar Yehuda. Rabbi Huna Bar Yehuda asks the question. It says in the pasuk, so the pasuk kodesh heim. So about b'choy shoyer or b'choy kesef, it says that you cannot redeem it. Kodesh heim. They maintain their kedusha. Now, what do you mean kodesh heim? If you can't redeem it, obviously there's no kodesh. So what do you have to add kodesh? She'im nis added bedam kochem achedim. So it says in the Brayso, if it got mixed up with blood of other kabbanas, yikrevu. You can bring it up. No, if a shlamim got mixed up with a b'chayr, you can bring them up. You can bring them up together. Says the Gemara. That's what kodesh means. They maintain their identity even if they got mixed up with others, and you bring it up. Now we're not talking about got mixed up with an oil because then it goes back to the whole machlekes of the chachamim. The oil goes above the line. We're talking about two kabbanas that are below the line, a b'chayr and a shlamim, or in fact all kabbanas are below the line, except the karmachatas. We're talking about below the line, and now it says you can bring it up l'chayr my love and you yaitze both. Is a mile talking about safe oil at the end of an oil ubechayr. And the chiddush here is, what's the chiddush then? If everything is in the same place, what's the chiddush? The chiddush is that it's the safe of the oil sharaim, and by a bechayr the beginning. And the chiddush here is to tell you that shirayim of an oil have to go to the side, but technically you're allowed to put it on the wall because eventually it'll run down to the side. That's the chiddush here. That the makom of the oil is the makom of shirayim. Otherwise, what's the chiddush? Right now, we're talking about that. No, they're both in the same place, and they're both the leftover of an oil has to go directly into the side. We're talking about you didn't spray yet the oil, you didn't spray the b'chayr, and they got mixed up. So we tell you, they're all together. Spray them together. You got it right because they're all in the same place. And since the Rabbanon hold yesh bila, right? It's not Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi Lezer holds bila. Rabbanon yesh bila means every drop that you have there, you have the oil blood, and you have the b'chayr blood. So what's the problem? Right. So what's the chiddush? The chiddush is the ein oilim mevatl zeh. When it comes to karbanos, the blood of one carbon does not cancel out the blood of another carbon. And says the Gemara, that's the chiddush of this pasuk. That's what you kodesh shame. They still maintain the kedusha that even though the blood of the b'chayr got mixed with the blood of the oil, they're not mevatl each other. But the Gemara, hi, we read it before, and we'll learn later. Milakach dam hapar medam asoyin avka. When it comes over there by Yom Kippur, it says you should take the blood of a par. Right, the blood of a bull and the blood of a goat. Obviously, a lot more blood from a par than the seer, and you mix them together. Actually, the machlekes tonight, whether you mix them together, you don't mix them together. But we're following the opinion that says you mix them together, and the Torah tells you there's dam par there, there's dam soya there. So we already know that blood don't cancel each other out, even though one is majority and one is less. They want to say Tanai, what's the problem? This Bryce learns from the pasuk of Kodesh Shem, and other Bryce learns from dam par dam soya. Okay, Masi Rabba has a question again. Again, we're talking about whether the wall is good enough or it has to be directly to the side. Masi Rabba has a question. It says in the pasuk that you should it says v'krivu b'nei Aaron hakoinim the blood dam, and then it says v'zorku es dam. What did it say twice? Dam. The moment you say v'krivu Aaron and v'zorku, that's it. We know we're talking about the blood. So ma tam aloim dam dam. What do you have to say twice? Dam. Kiyachol, I would have thought. Ainly Ella Elu, I would have thought only that these should be nikriv in this arbu betmurasa, that if, let's say, a carbon oil got mixed up with the tumur. Tumur is you took another animal and you said this should be an exchange of the oil. So now you have like two oils. And the two bloods got mixed up together, so they're identical carbonas, and therefore it tells you Zakadam say that even it's not the blood got mixed up with other blood, you can spray the two together. So I would have thought ainly Ella Elu should is arbu betmurasa. I would have thought only they got mixed up with a tumura, no oil with an oil. Let's say sha'at mechayim tikriv. Even they got mixed up. Even when they're alive, you bring it up. No, but even they got oil and oil and tumura got mixed up, you bring them both. Okay. So they're for the blood also. How do you know it applies to other kabbanas as well? Why? Because once I know that by oil. Dam, I know by oil, dam, that they got mixed up, you can bring up all the blood. So any animal which is similar to an oil, which is a donation. So shlamim, matoide, sheboim, benevedod, kemaisa. Menayin lerabas is asham. Asham is not a voluntary carbon, right? It's a mandatory carbon. How do you know as well the blood got mixed up with an oil? You can bring them. You can still bring up, and they mixed up yesh bila. You can bring up the blood together. Ma'arbanis asham shetom matan dalad kemaisa, because it's similar to an oil. You spray 2 times, that equals 4. So activity is the same, you can bring it up. I know other kabbanas where their maton is only 1. And they got mixed up with the oil, which is time shein arba. I know you can go ahead and spray it. It says dam dam. That's what it says twice dam, to tell you that any blood of kabbanas they got mixed up together, you bring them up, you spray it. Now the chayda, my love, what's the chiddush? The chiddush here is saif oil ubchayr. Why should you think no blood can be mixed? You can't spray. Look, if yesh bila, definitely there's dam oshamer and there's dam oil. What's the big deal? Must be a chiddush here. The chiddush here is that it's talking about the sharayim of the oil, which you would have thought has to go directly into the yesod, and you have the beginning of the other carbon, which has to go on the wall, and you would have thought, hey, it's a problem. Kamashalom, from the word dam dam, we learn out that it could be also on the wall. That's all the same. Ushmam and mokamayla mokushrayim. Say no raya. Remember, so machlekes, Rabbi Yisrael, Rabbi Yasin. No raya. Chilas oil b'chayr. We're talking about the blood that you haven't yet sprayed the oil and your blood from the osham you haven't yet sprayed and they're mixed together. And go ahead and spray it. But the Mordecai Mashlan. So what's the chiddush then? Why shouldn't you? They're all mixed together. Why not? The ain oil the chiddush is they don't cancel each other out, even though one might be a lot more blood than the other one. It doesn't matter. They don't cancel each other out. Freddy Gemara, the same question. When we look at down problem, I'm sorry enough, because then we learn from there. So now we have three psukim: dam dom, kodesh heim, and dam sorry. So you want Tanoi. So much like it's Tanoi. Now those learn from here, from Dam Dam. Some learn from Kodesh. Now let's go work it out. Why don't they all agree with each other? They don't hold from the Kasav, they hold Ein Ma'arin Likronis. They hold like that opinion that said that they did not mix the blood of the pot and the soil and the kippur. They were separate cups. So then you can learn from there. Midamdam, the other two don't agree with loyal damdam. They don't believe that the word, just because the actual word dam teach you these kind of dinim. It doesn't bother them. El Mekodesh, my timeline, but this Mamish Clark, that even though it says you shouldn't redeem it, so of course the Kodesh, and yet you say Kodesh must be to tell you that even if you go ahead and mix up something other blood, it still retains its identity. Kasavri, they hold no Kodesh Haim, no Kodesh Haim Krevin. Of ain't tumuras and by b'chayir, you only bring the original. If you make up another animal, fine, it's kodesh, but you don't bring it on mizbech. Vidach, how do they learn it out? If the ones who learn from kodesh haim that you learn out that you don't mix the blood, that even though you mix the blood, it's kosher, and they don't learn from parvasoyer. So how do they know about who kodesh ain't tumuras and kodesh? Nafkala, you know where they learn that from? So in the pasuk of Chayir, it says over there, im shoyd, im sel Hashem who. What's a who? Come tell you who it. Who kodesh ain't tumuras and kodesh? Toshma coming here. It says nosan lemaila. Let's say that you sprayed the blood on top. But like nimlach, he didn't consult. So what happened with the blood that belongs on top, chatas, got mixed up with the blood that goes on the bottom of the oila, and then he didn't consult, and you put it only on top. You spray everything on top. Didn't ask a Rav what to do. Everyone agreed. You asked someone that were told you not to, but you did it. Is elu ve'elu moedim? Everyone agrees. Everyone agrees that what? That you go ahead and you repeat it, exercise again in the bottom. What's going on? What do you mean? And then it says elu ve'elu oilulai. Sounds like you yates aside the chatas inside the oil. What happened was you had a chatas blood belonged on top of the line, mixed up with an oil blood on the bottom line. You didn't consult. You went ahead and you did it, and you sprinkled some on top, and then you sprinkled some on the bottom. They're all good. My love, the other the chatas oil. What are we talking about here? We're talking about over here a carbon chatas and a carbon oil blood got mixed together. And the kivun the yoav le'lamaila, and he says, why is it all good? What do you mean? What is all good? Because the chatas on top, the shiraim you have to spray on the bottom, and you're spraying it together with the oil blood, which is against the wall. You still yaitza also the shiraim of chatas because the wall is good enough. The kivun the yoav le'lamaila have the shiraim. If since you did the chatas on top, so what you have left over is shiraim. And so no, the Rabbanan will say, even though we would have told you go ahead and throw it out, but once you did it on top, even the Rabbanan will be made. You know what? Go do the bottom. The Rabbanan will be made to go do the bottom. And why would they go to the bottom? Because because what you have now a situation of a safe chatas and tchilas oila, because you already did the top, and the Rabbanan hold yesh bila. So you already were they don't hold of this royin, so they would have told you don't do it because you're throwing oil blood on top of the line. Don't do it, but you did it now, and definitely there was chatzos blood there because they hold yesh bila, all got mixed up. So now we're telling you chatchila go do the bottom because manoshach, the oil you'll be yaitzi because that belongs, and the chatzos blood it's right place also because this is the leftover of the chatzos and it goes on the wall. So you see from me clearly that the wall is good enough. Not like those who say that like Yosef that has to be dafke, or Rabbi Yechon has to be dafke on the Yisrael itself. That's what it seems. We see that with the same place where you spray the oil is with the place, the shiraim of the karbachatas. So the Gemara, by Yosef Amar, Amri b'Merava, you know what they say in Yisrael, Hochamai skin. No, that's not the case here. We're not talking about a chatas and oil. You thought we're talking about a chatas and oil. And therefore, you explain according to Chachamim that the shirayim go on the wall. No, you know what we're talking about here. The yarev chatas chitzoyne b'shirayim. What happened was you have two karma chatas. You have a chatas pnim What's above there? Okay, so we're talking about over here. It's missing the most important word is missing. There's a chatos you bring inside mizbech. If you remember, the chatos you bring, the chatos pnim, you bring inside mizbech. Where do you spray the blood? And in the mizbech. But what do you do with the leftover blood, the shirayim? It goes in the outer mizbech. And you have a chatos that you did in the outer mizbech, and now they get mixed up. So what happened was you had the chatas chitzayin, you didn't yet spray the blood, that got mixed up with chatas pnim shirayim. You sprayed the blood above the line, and now all you have to do now is spray a blow line. Marashich is good because they're both shirayim now of chatas. They're both exactly the same. The leftover the pnimim. So therefore, they're both the chatas. They're the chatas. You shouldn't have done above the line. You would have asked. We told you not to because the chatas pnim. You shouldn't be spraying outside. It's only the shirayim, and shirayim belong on the bottom. We were told you don't do it. But now that, and because also hold yesh bila, so definitely some of the chatzah prim blood would have been on top. We were told you to. But now that you did it, go ahead and do the bottom because they're both exactly the same. Says the Gemara, why talk about a prim and a chitzah? Talk about two chitzaynis. Talk about that you had left over already from a chatas before, and then it got mixed up to a tchilas chatas. You would have asked us, we would have told you don't do it because you have in there blood from the only shirayim of a chatas that belongs on the bottom. But now that he did it, all you have left over is the shirayim of two chatos chatzainis. Why do you have to throw in chatas primi? What do you gain by doing that? The Gemara knows the chiddush there. But Sabai has name of Magad Yad B'Shirayim. Deal Mahakamat Chiddush is Afilu L'Mando Omad Shirayim Mak. This is a chiddush. What's a chiddush? There's a machlek is Shirayim by a chatos chitzayin. If you don't have any blood left over, if it tipped over, whatever it is, you're still yotzi your carbon. But by the chatos prim, there's a machlek is whether Shirayim if it's critical or not. Even the one who said they're critical. What about if you're missing a little bit of that blood? Does it have to be critical that the entire blood has to be the shirayim has to go to the bottom to the side, or only some of the blood? We would have thought the entire blood, but here some of the blood is missing because you sprayed it on top above the line, and the chiddush is it's still good enough. So as I think, a side issue we try to learn from it. But if it's missing, everyone agrees it's not ma'akev. Didn't we learn the previous brises to explain when we says that because this is one of the brises we learned before, when it says that if you did it above and then you go below, according to Rabbi Lezer, we explain. Remember, if you hold ein bila, there's no mixing. What do you mean if you did it on top? Maybe you did the wrong carbon. What's going on there? So we explained that the chatas had much more blood than the oila. And that oil component in it, and therefore the part how much blood did you spray above the line a bit more than what there was original oil. So definitely there was some, even though you hold ein bila, there's no good mixture, but definitely a little bit of because no shear, definitely a little bit of the blood. According to Rashi, so definitely a little bit of blood went on the mizbeach. So we said before he was talking about Rubel Yoini. We're talking about that. What you sprayed above was the majority. And you said that there was more blood on the carbon that belongs on the top than the bottom, and you sprayed on the top above the line more blood than what there was originally from the bottom blood. Yes. Nothing to do with the chatas. Sorry?
That goes on his right?
Yeah, only
the environment goes outside.
Exactly. Yeah. So we learned before that these brides are talking about chatas and oila. That's how we explained it. And now you're telling me that it's chatas and chatas. We're not talking about even oila. That these brides are talking about chatas from the inside and chatas from the outside. And Abai is even asking just to have two chatos. But we're talking about the only way we learned it is because there's ain't bila. And because ain't bila, the only way to learn it is there's more blood of one than the other one. And we're talking about a chatas and oil and all the problems about the above line. Don't do chat prim. Says the Gemara, you missed the whole last discussion. That's how we thought in the beginning. That ain't bila. That all the bright that we heard, the way we thought in the beginning, they're all talking about where the blood got mixed up. But that's going to be crazy. Remember, we learned this at the beginning of Gemara today.
It's not mixed in the one cup.
Exactly, two different cups.
Two cups are going.
Yes, so therefore, don't do that. Once you learn there's two different cups, you no longer have to learn that's an oil and a chatas. You no longer have to learn that it's there's more blood here because you're going to spray both cups. You can spray anyone. You can spray. So now we're telling you, it's talking about a chatas prim and a chatas chutz. Mishnah. Now that we introduce Chatzos Pnim, actually the Gemara introduced it because the Gemara is about the mission about to talk about it. So Hanitonim Bifnim, those kabbanas that you have to spray on the inside, and Shinis Arba got mixed up in the Chutz. What happened was let's say Chatzos or something that belongs on the outside got mixed up with the Chatzos that belongs on the inside. So what do you do with the blood? Yishavchu l'ama. You pour it out in the amma. According to Rabbi Lezer, you should pour it on the mizbeach and say that that whatever this other blood is like water or something. The same rain that we had till now. What's going on? We'll see in a minute. Yeah. What happens if two chatois got mixed up? A chatos from the outside and a chatos from the inside. And you went ahead. Now the din is if you take blood from a chatos on the outside and you bring it in inside, it's possible. It is possible. Machlek is whether it applies only to korban chatas or to all kabbanas. Moshe Rabbeinu told about, I don't know, did they bring the blood inside of the chatas? That's why you burnt it. But so it's definitely talking about the chatas. And machlek is tanaim whether it applies to all of the kabbanas. So if you would have taken that blood and brought it inside, you pass on the chatas and chetzayin straight away. And so therefore he said like this: Nosen, but if you did the other way around, it doesn't pass. So nosen b'chutz b'chazon nosen b'fnim. If you put it on the outside. You spray. Remember, you have a chatzah pnim and chatzah chetzayin. If you spray them on the outside first, okay, so then the chatzah chetzayin you would definitely yates already. The chatzah pnim does not become possible by spraying some of the blood on the outside, and then the chazav and nasim b'fnim kasha. Then it's not a problem. But if you did b'fnim, first you sprayed the inside, but included in that blood is also the blood from the chatzah chetzayin, which is not allowed to go inside, and then the chazav and nasim b'chutz outside. So it depends. So Rabbi Kiva holds, I don't care what kind of carbon it is, possible, because he holds all kabbanas is possible, and the outside is possible. And the Chachamim machshir, the Chachamim say if it's not a chatas but other ones, those chatas will agree with you that obviously it's possible because the chatas you brought inside is possible. But all other kabbanas behold, if you brought it inside, it's not possible. So Rabbi Kiva holds any carbon you bring inside possible. Chachamim chatas b'vad, only chatas. Rabbi Lezer says not only chatas, I'm in between. Afa oshim oshel chashem chatas v'goshim. Now just two lines in water. Why over here do we say that if some, let's say, mixed up the two bloods together, and lechatchila yishav chula'ama? Why lechatchila yishav chula'ama? Because the chatas chitzon you can't bring inside. Have in mind that the chatas chitzon, whatever it is, that blood that you're doing inside is water. Rabbi Lezer should argue over here the same thing. Royin. Let Rabbi Lezer argue that what? So what should you do? Should we? So what? There's two possibilities, right? One is let's spray everything outside and have in mind that the chatas pnim, the blood of the chatas that's mixed in this mixture, is water. Yeah, let's say royin, it's water. So is that what you want? First spray outside of the v'hoda neisel pnim. You can't, because remember, just like we said before, you have to always bring the spray on the blood that's atop the line first, and then below the line. So too, when it comes to chatois, first you got to do the chatos pnim, and then you always have to do what's more chashiv. Kishem shemitzal hakas al yoyim tachtenim, mitzvah to spray the top before the bottom. Kach mitzvah hakas pnim. If you can't, if there's blood in there, you have to do it inside. So what's the other solution? V'neisid lifnim. So let's bring all the blood inside and have in mind that the chatois is water, or the other kabbalah is water, and then v'hada neisel chutz. So he says here, the other kabbalas might work, but it won't work by chatas and oshim. Could we say all of the kabbalah blood is kosher? So why don't we just do that, spray it inside? And even though the chatas chitzon is kosher, but it's wrong place, I have in mind that that's water. Even the chatas v'oshim. The problem is the chatas the oshim. If it got mixed up premium, the moment you bring it inside, that blood becomes possible. That blood becomes possible. The chinichnas damam psulin. It became possible. So by chatas and an oshim at least, you can't do this solution. So that loy psikally, therefore, you don't want to give a solution that you have to then start qualifying. It only works by these kabbanas. It doesn't work by these kabbanas. Therefore, he doesn't get involved. But you're right. He does argue with all other kabbanas, which doesn't passel the blood. So then just go, bring it inside, have in mind that's only water, and spray whatever goes in the beich is the prim, and then outside. Tomorrow, mitzvah. We're definitely all dying.